Hello everyone. Thanks for attending to the second webinar of UrbanByNature China program on the topic Enabling Conditions and Barriers to Implementing Nature-Based Solutions. In this session, Sean Bradley and I, Carolina Garcia, as members of the Clever Cities project, will present some reflections about our work on the project. Tecnalia's roles is to lead the Clever Cities co-creating process for urban regeneration and to assess nature-based solutions impact through the Clever Monitor. Along this session, we will share with you some reflections on the results of the Clever Cities project in relation to the nature-based solutions implementations in vulnerable urban environments where an active, integrated urban regeneration policy is required. Clever Cities assumes that nature-based solutions by themselves are unlikely to create, sustain, prosperous development. Instead, the co-creation process will unlock local capacities to use the impulses of nature-based solutions to improve places, environment, opportunities, and generate social cohesion and social impact. The Clever Cities approach is built on capitalizing local capacities and innovative solutions through applying the PM grid, systematizing them and harvesting clever solutions along the way. In the project, nature-based solutions is conceptualized as a physical intervention to place-based regeneration created for and driven by people, with the city as a platform to support urban regeneration policy making in terms of urban planning, organizational structures, and funding mechanisms. The interplay of local capacities with innovations through materials, methods, management, and monitoring will enhance societal prosperity, particularly by maximizing new opportunities, delivering economic, social, and environmental outcomes in an integrative way. But among urban challenges and co-created clever cities, we find several barriers. In general, difficulties in achieving social acceptance, political prioritization, financial constraints, or the absence of long-term plans are the main ones. There are also some more specific barriers that can differ from one context to another. Traditional planning approaches in regional and city master plans constrain the nature-based solutions development, avoiding innovative approaches against climate events. There is a lack of specific or adapted urban planning tools for nature-based solutions implementation. In response, the mainstreaming of integrated urban regeneration and adaptive management approaches has the potential for transformative change, facilitating their deployment. Local governments play a key role in built environment transformation. Depending on the administrative structure in question, local authorities will have broad responsibility. But despite that, in urban greening efforts, highlight a tendency towards silos and a lack of integration between departments. Some examples of barriers found are related to legal rigidity and lack of specific regulation. In some cases, problems come from land use regulation or sectoral policies restrictions. In relation with financial barriers and the economic valuation of nature, nature-based solutions implementation still doesn't raise expectations. Many of them are identified as public goods or common pool resources that do not lend themselves easily to private sector. Another related barrier is nature-based solutions value explicit and measurable, both in monetary and non-monetary terms, to attract the interest and ex-ante perception of benefits from both public and private actors. In this sense, there must be tools to support the eliciting, describing, and documenting of the solutions value capture process. The clear need for innovative formulas has been channeled in the project through the adding a participatory co-creation component that ensure a bottom-up approach, giving voice to the project promoters and potential beneficiaries as a way to improve the sense of place and social cohesion. A pending issue in this sense is how to upscale such effects for the widespread reach and involvement among different stakeholders on a higher scale. Linked to that, I will finally highlight the importance of having upscaling plans to favor the sustainability and long-term vision of the nature-based solutions urban policy, pushing to really become a stable and active file of action assumed by all. In this sense, from Clever Cities project, we are working with the front-runner cities in identifying lessons learned with a greater upscaling potential to develop a specific nature-based solution upscaling plan. After this last reflection, I pass the floor to my colleague Xin that will share with us the experience into the Thamesmead neighborhood Clever Action Lab.
I'm Sean Bradley from Groundwork London. I will be continuing on by considering the enabling conditions and barriers in the context of Clever Cities London. The London component of Clever Cities is being implemented in Thamesmead, which is in the southeast of London, as we can see here in this image. When considering project barriers and enabling conditions, they are often two sides of the same issue. For example, where lack of knowledge of nature-based solutions is a barrier, creating knowledge sharing and training mechanisms are important enablers for NBS development. Carolina has mentioned both general and specific barriers. I will be considering a few examples of these and discussing how enabling mechanisms and solutions were applied in Thamesmead. Continuing on the subject of lack of knowledge sharing, we encountered in Thamesmead a wide range of knowledge bases in both the professionals and other stakeholders. This can be a lack of experience with either NBS or the co-creation process itself, both of which are critical aspects of this project. Enabling mechanisms included taking time to craft procurement documents to define the process for designers in a clear manner, but also being ready to learn from the difficulties encountered and register those for the next stages and the next iterations. For the stakeholders that were most intensely involved in the process, like the Community Design Collective and the community researchers, we budgeted in time for training in the process. Considering the issues of silo thinking, we found that despite there being a less complex institutional context than in other partner cities, interdepartmental silo thinking is still ingrained in the design process. Also, hybrid green solutions are still not standard thinking for most of those people involved. Our partner organization, Peabody, was, however, open to experimenting with new governance structures. Thus, the Community Design Collective, or CDC, was given a true co-clienting role in the decision-making process. information was shared in a transparent manner, and community members would often receive documents together with the rest of the client team, and that was a general rule. We also introduced the concept of co-benefits whenever possible so that people could start to understand the idea of multiple benefits and multiple solutions. Limited participation is almost always an issue in design projects, and it's no different. Although previous co-design processes had been tested in Thamesmead, these were still in the initial stages of institutional change for the organization. Of course, communicating to all residents is still a heavy challenge. And finally, there was COVID to deal with. In response to this, we created multiple channels of community input that envisioned both wide citizen involvement while also trying to create actions that focused on social inclusion, such as using a paid model to help people who could not otherwise join the process. We strongly considered motivational aspects of different groups and developed distinct responses to those situations by employing things like kits and workshops and festivals and even a microsite. We can see from this figure the different channels that help bring community knowledge to the table. We also explored utilizing both online, face-to-face, and hybrid techniques, as we can see in kits that were sent out to people that brought people back to the internet eventually. Lack of public acceptance is also common, and there's still much institutional distrust in the region. There's also limited social structure in Thamesmead, so not a lot of organizations with which to work, no residents associations, and that type of structure. So to deal with this, we have had to be open and clear about the decision-making process, also develop multiple levels of community-led design, demonstrating to community members that there are different levels of participation. So the grants at the one level, people had complete control over funds and decision-making, and people could see that happening, whereas other processes, community members would give input or help make design decisions. We also repeated many messages and showed that this was a process of improvement, being open about the difficulties and the challenges involved. Showing solutions on the ground is also extremely helpful. Finally, building community relationships beyond the design project itself. So that means setting up partnerships with local organizations and helping them build and strengthen their memberships is also part of this project, building trust and relationships in the community. And there are many more barriers and conditions we could consider, such as the lack of evidence for NBS, which would give more confidence to stakeholders, financing issues and such, but these will have to wait for another opportunity. Thank you from both myself and Carolina.